Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Movie Reel, where we talk about movies, dissect them, and all around just have a fun time with it. I'm your host, Kevin Tracy.
I'm Samantha Tomlinson. I'm sorry if I sound kind of weird. These are the only headphones I have right now. So, anyway, how's it going, Kevin?
I'm actually doing great right now. I've been having like a really fun time at my new job. Get to work a lot of fun concerts. Get to see some real fun performances, and I get to talk about movies all day. So this is a great time.
Mm-hmm. And what movie are
So
we talking about today?
we're actually talking about a personal favorite of mine. We're talking about the '80s classic Gremlins, which was directed by Chris Columbus. And for the longest time, I thought this was directed by Steven Spielberg, and that's a very from what I understand, that's a very common mistake
It
because he produced it. It was kind of like the same thing with
Goonies.
Back to the Future. Well, that too, and also Back to the Future. Like everyone thinks that he directed it as like he was just the producer,
Oh,
and Robert Zemeckis did Back to the Future.
I don't think I think Chris Columbus just wrote this. I don't think he directed it because it was like Let me look it up. It wasn't him. I just remember seeing Chris written by Chris Columbus, but
Oh yeah, you're right. It was Joe Dante.
Joe Dante. Okay,
Chris Columbus. Chris Columbus was the right. Yeah, no, okay. See, I even mixed this up.
but I do have to say, one, this is definitely a Christmas movie. Like, why did this come out in the summer? It came out in like June in the 80s. Like, what this is definitely
Yeah,
100% a Christmas movie. Like, it's not like there are other movies that are set during Christmas for random reasons, but Christmas is not so deeply embedded in the story. Like, Christmas is very embedded in this story, and it, so I was just for a second, I'm like, wait, is this an why do people think this isn't a Christmas movie? It 100% is. And
yeah.
uh,
Well, I mean, you can definitely I can definitely see the argument for people saying that oh, this is more of a Halloween movie because there
I
are
mean,
definitely
sure,
horror elements and it's like a creature feature. Like it definitely kind of bleeds through a little bit on some like the scare factor, which would be more associated with like Halloween movies. But I would agree with you that this is a Christmas movie first and foremost.
but the other thing is, I have to say, so I really love Chris Columbus, and he he I feel like Spielberg, and George Lucas all have this really. They're all pretty good at keeping things, no matter how intense things are, they still manage to make it feel fun. And I think there
Yeah.
was one moment in the movie that was genuinely like kind of sad and a little heartbreaking. And it was when the old lady, Mrs. Deagle, sees all the gremlins and she's like, "No, they're coming for me. I'm not ready." And she's kind of crying. Like, that was for me the most heartbreaking moment of the movie. And then her death was
Yeah, but
hilarious.
to be fair, she's like the most horrible
Oh,
person in the
she
movie.
was a huge
Aside,
bitch.
yeah, it's like wow, it's like the one person that I'm actually rooting for that bite it in this movie, and you're making me feel bad about it. Damn it.
She confused me so much because she was mad at the main character Billy, who, how old is he supposed to be? Is he a teenager? Is he like 20? Like,
That's one thing that kind of confused me about this movie
he
because
works at a
he's
bank.
like yeah, he works at a bank, so I'm guessing like in his 20s, and he's like hanging out with like the in a bar. So it's like okay, so he's clearly not a teenager. Um, and then like later on in other scenes, like Corey Feldman's just hanging out in his room, which is like in the attic of their house, and like Billy's just changing his shirt with Corey Feldman. There's like, dude, what the hell? Like that's so weird for like a 20-something-year-old just like changing clothes in front of I'm guessing like a middle schooler, like Corey Feldman, because I remember they go to the school because apparently the only person to bring this possibly like world changing scientific discovery is your local biology teacher at a public school. Your public school elementary science teacher
I was thinking
is
that
your
too.
go-to
I was
is your go-to de facto scientific discoverer.
I was thinking that too. I'm like, why is it always like the local like science teacher that runs all do science teachers just run experiments on their own time? Like
The 80s were a wild place, man.
um but like this all could have been avoided. Like this entire story could have been
Oh
avoided
yeah,
if this dad wasn't so hell bent on giving his son. I literally thought he's like, I want to give it to the Mogwai, a gift for my son for Christmas, and that kind of gave me the impression that his son is a like a kid, or B doesn't have a pet, but he's an
yeah.
adult and has a dog. So I
Yeah, no, like the beginning narration is like, yeah, I'm trying to get a gift for my kid. It's like, okay, so this is a child. Like you're going into this movie expecting like maybe an 8-year-old kid or like a 10-year-old kid. Like this is gonna be like a kids
it
movie, and it's going to be like it's so misleading, and I think they do that on purpose so that Billy can kind of get away with like all the stuff that he does in this movie. Like he's like swinging a sword around and decapitates a gremlin. Like he's doing like all these like kind of violent stuff that you can't really get away with in a kids movie, especially if you're a kid doing these
I will
things.
say the first scene. Okay, it's not the Chinatown scene, but the next scene, like we're in Kingston Falls and it's Christmas and they're playing Christmas music. It just to me, it had the same feeling of the Goonies, but like
Oh yeah, 100%.
like Chris Columbus just has this vibe, and it's not quite. It's like it's. I feel like the reason I said Spielberg and George Lucas, I feel like they all have that similar like fun, adventure-y vibe. But I do think that
Yeah.
Chris Columbus's is like, I don't know how to explain it. Like each one is different. Like you can
Yeah, no,
identify. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right words to say it. Like
I totally know what you mean. Like they kind of have like
very
they have
similar,
like this like
but
yeah, they have a very similar vibe, and it like I appreciate it because it's like each one of their styles is still like heavily grounded in reality. Like they're not you're not seeing something that shouldn't be there for the sake of storytelling. Like everything is there that would be there in real life,
like Chris.
or like
Yes,
the real life counterpart to it,
like
which I think is really cool.
yes, like and Chris Columbus in particular, like he like for example, he directed the first two Harry Potter movies, and to me those do not feel at all like Spielberg, maybe because Spielberg wasn't involved, but like it feels like a Chris Columbus movie. And
Yeah.
I just can't like I guess was thinking like he was originally for a minute was going to direct all of them, which that would have been unbelievable. But I get why because he didn't because it's a huge endeavor. That's like 10 years of his life. But he like has this everything I've seen him do is incredibly fun, and this was no exception. This was a very fun, really entertaining movie. I I did kind of start to fall asleep towards the end, but it was very late, so I don't really blaming the movie. I'm blaming that it was like past midnight.
Yeah, that's right. Because yeah, well, I think we both like started the movie like around the same time,
It
like
was
at
like
like 11
10 o'clock.
last
10.
night.
It was like ten
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
yeah, like it was late, but like thankfully like I remembered enough of the movie that I could kind of like fast forward like through a couple scenes. It's like, oh, I remember this part. Like, oh, this is the part where this happened. Uh, like there was only like one thing that I think I noticed like the last time I watched it. And I forgot that I like. Thankfully, rewatching this like made me remember that would have changed the ending like completely if like Billy and Kate like messed up in trying to take down Stripe, which it's like, oh no, like that's we could have gotten a sequel early. Um,
What is the sequel about?
which oh don't no, I'm not opening that can of worms.
Oh,
We are not talking about we are not talking about Gremlins 2.
okay. Is it a good sequel or a crappy sequel?
Oh, it is unrecognizable as a sequel. Like they have some of the
Oh
main
god.
like they have like the same characters and it like takes place in the same universe, but it takes place in a New York City skyscraper movie studio set building that apparently is like has like a mad scientist lab in there that has
Oscorp?
like I it like it had too many things going on that made
Okay.
no sense on like why is this here when this is here? It yeah, it was they had too much and it made no sense. And
Okay.
it just got really fucking weird. And there's a
Okay.
really funny Key and Peele skit that spoofs it, but the funny thing is that they're not spoofing it. They're just saying the movie. That's how weird it is that they made a Key and Peele skit and they just didn't embellish it. They're just saying the movie as it is, and it's the funniest thing.
They would do that.
Yep, 100%.
Um, but yeah, so anyway, when I saw okay, so I don't really I again big surprise I hadn't seen Gremlins. I knew it was set during Christmas and that was about
Shocker.
it. And I know like I mean it's a movie like I know yeah don't feed it after midnight. I guess that's about it. That's all I knew.
Yeah,
Which
the three rules. Keep
don't
him
get it
away from
wet.
bright light. Yeah, keep him away from bright lights. Sunlight will kill him. Don't get him wet, and don't feed him after midnight.
So I was thinking about that. How does the midnight thing? So in the movie, he doesn't just, who cares? It's after midnight. I'm gonna give. They're really hungry. Like his clock is broken. He finds out the next day.
Yeah,
But isn't it in a sense always after midnight? Like, would it matter? How would they adjust to like a different time zones? Like,
they okay, it's funny that you bring that up because they make that exact argument in Gremlins 2 for like 5 minutes, but they kind of riff on the whole thing.
okay,
Like what if he's like on a plane and it shifts into his time zone and he has like food stuck in his teeth? Like they just keep going into like hypothetical what ifs. It's like, guys, there's a problem here and now. Can we shut up and deal with it? It's like, no. We need to figure this out.
because I was
And then
like, yeah,
and then like in the middle of that argument, like one like mauls this guy's face off. It's like, oh, okay, glad we solved that problem.
like how would they know? How would the Mogwai's body know the difference between 11:59 and 12:01? Like,
You know what? I tend not to question things that aren't within the realm of reality. Of this is like whimsical, magical stuff that make no sense, and you just kind of have to
fine,
accept it for what it is.
fine, whatever, fine.
Like I don't go into
Yeah.
Harry Potter, and it's like, what makes the magic work? It's like I don't care. That's gonna be like a way too long 40-minute TED talk. I don't have time for that shit. Let's go. Um,
I remember I once watched it was like I'm sure I've complained about it to you, like a long time ago. I saw it was like a prequel, it was a mini series to Peter Pan, and they were like, the reason time stands still here is because it's on Neverland is a planet in the center of the universe. And I was just like, no, that's stupid. And also, I don't think anyone has ever questioned why they don't age. They just don't. And we're like, okay, like it wasn't there was no reason for us to question that. So
th-
why are you trying to convince me that it's a planet? It was so stupid. I was just like, nope, you're wrong. That's
that
dumb.
All right, I'm gonna move on because I don't even know how to process that shit.
Right? It's
Um,
stupid. Anyway,
yeah. Okay. So anyway, we meet Gizmo, our lovable companion throughout this entire movie, who I was today years old, was voiced by Howie Mandel. Um,
what?
yeah, Howie Mandel voiced Gizmo,
I don't.
the host of Deal or No Deal.
Wait,
Uh,
wait. Is that still on?
no, that's just what I know him best as, even though that show hasn't been on in like 7
I mean,
years.
he's a comedian, and he is well. Currently, he's one of the judges on America's Got Talent. But yeah, oh
No,
my god,
yeah, but
Deal or No Deal?
yeah, but no one watches that. I'm talking about the classics.
I don't know. My parents actually watched that.
Oh,
Anyway,
it's a different demographic, but whatever.
anyway,
Deal or No Deal host himself, Howie Mandel,
I will say
debuts.
Gizmo. So Gizmo seems to just sometimes he talks and sometimes he just makes sounds that sound like talking. Like I was like, is this like a Scooby situation? how sometimes he says only a couple words and then by Mystery Incorporated he's speaking in full sentences.
Yeah, like
like
I
like
just kind of assumed that it was just kind of like mimicry in this movie, like he's kind of like a parrot or something, and that's kind of like why he's just kind of like talking in his own kind of like Mogwai language that the other kind of like gremlins are like speaking to themselves throughout the movie, and they're just kind of like mimicking like certain words and phrases because it's either relevant to what is going on or they just heard it a bunch of times through repetition and other people saying it near them.
okay. I mean,
Like
okay.
I feel like
I
that's
can
like
accept that.
yeah, like
That's
I
an
feel like
acceptable answer.
okay, thank you. I I was
I
expecting a
can
little pushback from you there. It's like
no, I can accept that.
how dare you
like
agree with me? I have more time to argue.
but we should explain, like, if you, assumingly if you're not me, you have seen Gremlins, and the dad is in this shop in Chinatown because he's trying to sell he's an inventor, and he's
Yeah,
trying to sell his inventions, or his one invention in particular, the bathroom buddy.
yeah.
It's like, it's your toothbrush, it's nail clippers, it's
It's basically
this.
it's basically like a Swiss Army knife of just like a bunch of like random like bathroom utensils.
Yeah,
Um,
and
but by the
throughout
way,
the movie though,
by the way,
sorry,
sorry, like this
no,
dad like straight up gives me like the vibes of like the dad from like Holes and just like a hopeless inventor that like none of his inventions work right and like people like ridicule for like do you kind of get like that vibe too? Like the dad from like Holes is like constantly trying to make like a soap or like shampoo or something. I don't even remember what the hell he was trying to invent, but like it like
I
always
don't
like ends
oh
like
my
it always
god.
ends up in
It
misery. Like they're the same character, right?
I I that's super funny. I Holes is not a movie I refer to that much. That's super funny. I didn't
Like
think about that. I think okay, it hit me also while watching this. So last week, the grandpa in Santa's sleigh, I was saying how we both agreed he reminded us of, like, Maurice, so Belle's dad in Beauty and the Beast.
yeah,
But I realized the other person he also kind of reminded me of was Dick Van Dyke in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, because he does a lot of inventions. He's an inventor,
yeah,
and so I think he kind of reminded me esque of that kind of person. But unlike Dick Van Dyke, this guy makes his inventions don't really seem to work. And his wife and his son, Billy, they're just throughout the movie attempt to use it, and then it doesn't work, and then they just clean up the mess that the machines made, and
oh
then go
yeah,
on with their lives. And, like, so at the bank that Billy works at, his immediate boss is Judge Reinhold, and he, I guess, is saying, like, "Come on, you're young, you're basically, the main breadwinner for your family." And it's like, how is there no, it's kind of impressive, and on kind of like also a little unbelievable that there's no anger or bad blood towards the dad for being like a creative and inventor and not really getting much back.
yeah,
And they're just like, they're just humoring him and then just going on with their lives.
yeah. They're all like weirdly supportive, even though like he's like as far as we see, like he's making like no profit off of like anything that he's done in this movie. Like
No.
like the one time he is able to sell one of his inventions, like at the end of the movie, like an hour 30 minutes into this movie out of an hour 45, he sells his Peltzer smokeless ashtray to some like chain smoker, like gas station attendant. And as he's leaving, the gas station attendant like it is like coughing constantly because his smokeless ashtray doesn't work. There's just a ton of smoke. Like I'm convinced this man just sold like tricked this man into selling him a smoke machine. Um, and then when the uh the Chinese man that basically had like Gizmo stolen from him, like showed up. It's like, oh yeah, hey, I have a gift for you. Like, the Pelter smokeless ashtray. It's like, how did you know that? It's like, oh yeah, the guy at the gas station tried to sell it to me. He's like, but I'll take it anyway. It's like, thanks for the gift. I'm not gonna be a dick about it.
Also, actually, now that, yeah, so now that we're talking about so the guy that owns the store in Chinatown.
Yeah,
So his like grandson is the one because he's like, no, you can't have the Mogwai. Too much responsibility,
yeah. No,
and
with great Mogwai
or
comes.
with great,
Yeah, he more or less says with great power comes great responsibility or something like that. But it was just like he
but
replaced like one word, and it made me
he doesn't.
laugh.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to give it to he doesn't want to sell it, and but also why is it hanging out there if it's not for sale? Because of course somebody is gonna. There's no way he was the only person that says, "Hey, I want to buy this." And his grandson, he's so the dad's willing to give $200 for it, and the grandson just kind of sneaks, gives it to him, and then tells him the rules, which makes me wonder: does he not know what he's selling, or does he just think, I'm going to tell them the rules and just take the money and be quiet. He knows what he's selling, but they need the money.
Yeah,
Like,
well, he even says like, "Oh, forget about my grandpa. He's crazy." But like, he does say is like, "We need the money." But I think like he just interpreted the rules as like this is just like a really like needy pet or something like that.
yeah.
Like it's like, oh yeah, like keep him away from like bright light, like clearly like we see throughout the movie, like bright light just like terrifies him. It's like I was like, oh, bright light will probably kill him. Like he probably doesn't think that this thing's gonna like explode like a vampire like it does later on in the movie. But like he probably just thinks like this is just like a really needy pet. So like follow this. Like it has a very strict like feeding diet. So don't feed him after midnight. That'll just like mess him up. It's like keep him away from water. He's basically a cactus. Just let him do his own thing when it comes to that.
Hold on,
Uh,
so they don't drink water? They said don't. They can't. Don't, so first he said don't get wet, and then the dad told him don't give him water, like not even to drink. It's like so he's a living thing. He's got to have water in some capacity. Be like a
yeah,
cat. Can he get it from food? Like,
I guess like it's never explained as far as I know. Like if he can't get wet and he can't drink water, then does he like need to do that? Like, but like yeah, it makes no sense, and like that's the one thing that I'm like super confused about. Uh, and yeah, like I'm genuinely trying to like piece that together. Like even like as a kid when I first watched this, which by the way, for the longest time, uh, I was not allowed to watch this movie for one scene in particular. Uh, like kind of near the end of the movie, and we actually had a friend who um, would like basically babysit us all the time that had like a version of the movie that she had taped on TV and basically like edited that scene out that we could watch it at her house, and my parents were okay with that. And the scene in particular was when Billy and Kate and Gizmo are in the bank after like the Gremlins have basically just like ravaged the entire town, and she's telling the story about how her dad went missing on Christmas Eve, and they found his dead body in the chimney dressed as Santa, and that's how she discovered that there isn't a Santa Claus. We weren't allowed to watch that movie because of that scene because like we were kids. It's like, oh no, there's not a Santa. That was my parents' reason for not letting us watch that movie for that scene because we'll learn that there isn't such a thing as Santa Claus. Not the fact that this is a traumatizing and fucked up story about a father that dies horribly, but no, there's no Santa. The magic is gone after that. It's like, okay, what the fuck, mom?
oh my god. I mean, they really wanted to keep the spirit of Santa alive.
Apparently. Like I can't blame it. Like I love my parents to death, but like wow, that is a leap. That is, I mean, if you don't want us to watch the movie, just say so.
That may have just been easier.
I think so.
Um. So
Moving
okay,
on.
moving on. So yeah, we see kind of when the dad brings Gizmo home, and the mom tries to take a picture, and then the bright light freaks him out, and then later he accidentally like when so Corey Feldman's character, is it his name Pete? I want to
Yeah,
say,
it's
or is
Pete.
that somebody else? He
It's
comes
Pete.
over and he bumps like a water, like a cup of water, and it hits Gizmo, and it looks like they are all very concerned, as they should be, because it's like they dumped acid on him,
Yeah,
and then
he's
he
shrieking
multiplies.
like a banshee. Like it is haunting to hear.
But so, yeah, he multiplies. There's five new ones, and then when he shows his dad, he's like, the one with the stripe. I think he's the leader, and I kind of just thought, like, how can you possibly tell that
Because they're all hovering
already?
around him.
But also, okay, fine, but so like the next, is it later that night, next day, whatever? He
I
hears
think it's like later that night when he finds Barney.
he finds his dog like all tied up in the like Christmas lights that are hanging out from the roof, and he's just like suspended in air. And he like I will say for the most part is a very good dog owner. He like gets him down, he gives him a bath, warms him up, and the dad, they're worried it's this the mean stupid bitch old lady Mrs.
Mrs. Deagle.
Deagle
Yeah,
who
because in the beginning of the movie, she's storming in to the bank from like across town, um, carrying like this like porcelain like snowman head, and she's just being like a bitch. Like everyone she's walking by is like, "Oh, good morning, Mrs. Deagle." Like, what's good about it? Like, bah humbug, and like
yeah.
piss off. And like the main thing that like solidifies just like how like much of like a hurtless monster this woman's character is this woman comes up with like her two like I don't know like 8-year-old kids. It's like oh Mrs. Deagle, like we're going to need an extension on our loan. Like my husband just got another job and I'm taking up sewing on the side. We're not going to be paid for another week. I was hoping if you could talk to the bank manager about getting us an extension on our loan. It's like uh it's like the bank and I exist for only one reason, to make money. If you want to be a deadbeat, then be a deadbeat. But I guess you know what to ask Santa for Christmas. Like,
My God.
jeez,
And then
I
but then
she's so fucking heartless.
she is, and then literally that scene ends with her going inside and the kid saying to the mom, Mommy, I'm hungry. And mom's like, I am too. And I'm like, oh my God. And
Yeah,
then Mrs.
she,
Deagle
she
is just, because she's like, so mad, like, your dog broke my snowman or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, it
And
was like it broke my imported Bavarian snowman, and then just like I don't want money to replace it. I want your dog, and it's like I'm gonna take him to the kennel, put him to sleep. It's like she basically like threatens to kill this man's dog right in front of him in broad daylight with like 12 witnesses, and like he's the bad guy because his dog just like hopped the counter and like kind of playfully like pulls on her arm. It's basically playing like tug of war with like her like fur sleeves. It's like, really? He's the asshole? It's like, no. Like I don't care how rich this lady is. She just threatened to like throw my dog in a spin dryer, and the guy right next to her is like, yeah, that would kill the dog, all right.
but it was just, she was, the way she said it, it was so weird. He's like, okay, I'm sorry, do you want money for it? She's like, no, I don't want money. And he's like, well, what do you want? She's like, I want your dog. I'm gonna take him to the kennel and put him to sleep. And I'm like, and I was so confused. I'm like, it occurred to me late, like a little as it went on, like, oh, she's threatening him. But the way it came off was like she was asking, like, hey, can you give me your dog so I can take it to the kennel and he'll be put to sleep? And like, and I'm like, are you trying to convince him? You're doing a terrible job. And then I'm like, oh wait,
Yeah,
she's threatening him. But then yeah, the dog, he brings his dog to work, for, there's no, I don't know why he couldn't,
yeah, yeah.
the dog's pretty,
Yeah,
we're smart, he could have just hung out at home by himself.
yeah. There's no reason why he brought the dog with him. Like the only like logical reason was he like locked out of the house? Like because in the beginning of the movie, we see him like trying and failing to start his like slug bug, and it's just not working for whatever reason. And it's like, oh man, I'm gonna be late for work. It's like, why did you need to drive? You literally got there in like 3 minutes on foot. Driving there would have been pointless. You would have spent more time trying to find a parking spot than it would for you to just walk there.
I mean,
Like
this was movie
like
time. We don't know how if it's across town, if it's down the block. It's
I mean
unclear.
still, but I
Yeah,
mean
yeah, no, yeah,
it seems very convenient that it was just like, all right, he got there like pretty fast.
yeah.
Like I don't see why driving needed to be an issue. Like he got there like with really no trouble or
No.
anything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah. And then but then like the when the dog attacks her, she's like, "My heart, my weak heart." And I thought she was like just being a bitch and like just pretending like to make the situation even appear worse.
Yeah,
Um
I
when
think she was like fully like playing the
but
victim
then
card.
later when she's being attacked by gremlins and she's freaking out, it's like, "Oh no, she actually does have a weak heart."
I think that was just like a karma coincidence right there that she just happened to have a weak heart and she
The
just kind of finally got a
yeah.
comeuppance. Like I don't think those like went one and the same. Like I think she was like fully like hamming it up in the bank.
The dog, I will say, is very much, it's like a Disney dog. Like it understands English and and like reacts to very, human responses. Like cuz he attacks her because she's basically saying she's going to have him killed, and then he's a movie dog. He hears this and is mad and is going to attack her when most dogs would not. I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on the dog. They can pick up weird stuff from people, but
Yeah.
um, uh, for the most part, yeah, he is a pretty solid dog owner, despite that he brings his dog to work for no real reason. But then after work, so he works with what's her name? Is it? It's
It's
the
Kate played by
Kate.
Phoebe Cates.
Um, he he's like, yeah, at a bar, and his boss, Judge Reinhold, comes up to him and saying,
Yeah,
"Hey, I'm
yeah,
23. By 25, I'm gonna have Mr. So and So's job, and by 30, I'll be a millionaire." It's like, cool, like, okay. And then Kate is working at the bar, and she's like, "Yeah, I just thought I would pick up some extra money." And Billy's like, "Oh, good for you." And he was like, and Judge Reinhold's giving her shit about it, and then he's like, "Hey,
yeah.
why don't you come see my new apartment?" It's like, let me get this straight. You're shitting on her job and now asking her out?
Yeah, and like
Swoon.
and the funny thing was is that like his pickup line is like, "Hey, you haven't seen my new apartment yet." I was like, "I haven't seen your old apartment."
I know,
It's
I
like,
was like,
all right.
good for
It's like
her.
that yeah, like that's a great like it's like shut the fuck up. Like that's a great like rejection line.
And I want to wait until later to say why she doesn't like Christmas, because later,
I mean, I think I just kind of said it earlier.
wait, Kate doesn't like Christmas?
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
It's like
I was
I went on like a
listening. I was listening, but I was also like, I got a text. I was listening. I'm sorry, but
I feel so offended right now. I cannot believe you. I was talking for who knows how long.
but okay, that makes
Oh
okay.
my gosh.
Yes, okay, but yeah, I will say that scene though. Holy shit! Like, you know what? I get why your parents were kind of concerned, but I also stand by that maybe you just shouldn't have been watching Gremlins.
I mean, yeah, like I'm not gonna fault them on that. Like that's fair. But I mean, it's like it was a version that was like edited for TV. So like we're not seeing like the gremlin like exploding in the microwave or like the gremlin getting decapitated and the head rolling into the fireplace. Like it's edited for TV to the point where it's like it's
As far as you
not
know, there's a couple more Gremlins that are still alive because we have not seen them die.
actually, yeah, for a long time, I legitimately thought that the movie like intentionally sequel baited because we didn't see every gremlin die. It's like, wait, there were like five in the house. Like we only saw like
Mom, mom
I'm
killed
like,
like three.
yeah, and like, holy shit, she was
Damn, good for her. Like she was like she did not waste any time. She was
no
like,
like, she was like so like methodical and like tactical about that too. She was like checking corners,
yes, I
like
know.
picking her. It's like someone watched John Wick. Good for you, mom.
She's the inspiration for John Wick.
uh, I can believe that. Like I would totally watch a movie, like a
John Wick's
horror movie.
mom.
Well, not like more or less, but like of like a movie of just like a random like suburban mom, like basically just like fighting some like weird like otherworldly like creature like the Gremlins and just being like it's like you're messing with my son's soccer schedule. I need to pick him up in an hour, and just like going to town on like some like
Oh,
fucking gremlins.
she reminded me of the mom in Mitchell's versus the Machines, who just like snaps when the robots
Yes.
take her son, and then she she just like destroys the
Oh,
robots.
but yes. It's like brothers run. The purple one has returned, or like however, or whatever. Like yeah,
I
the
think
lavender one has
yeah.
returned. It's
Then
like
ha ha ha, I'm all scary now.
yeah, pretty much.
But
I
yeah,
would love a movie of just like a mom just like fully snapping and just like all the stress of like her like daily life of having to like maintain like her like three kids and like her like borderline stay at home mom like job plus her like actual job, just
yeah.
like releasing all that pent up like well deserved anger on something that probably doesn't need that much anger.
Isn't that what Bad Moms is about?
I think I've seen like 5 minutes of like a Bad Moms Christmas, the sequel. I think
I haven't. I
so.
don't think I. Yeah. Anyway.
I don't
Anyway.
know. We'll say that for
Yeah.
another month.
But yeah. When she we should actually back up. So yeah, Billy gives the some food to. Actually, sorry. I think I realized I got cut off because we got off on a whole another tangent. But when he finds Barney like tied up to all of the like lights, and I was just thinking like later, I'm like, so Gizmo is really nice and sweet and adorable. All these other Mogwai before they're Gremlins, just as Mogwai, they're like starting to cause trouble.
Yeah,
Just
like
so like
they're
they were
yeah
gonna
they're
be
like
little shits regardless, but Gremlins they just went full on like just they were just murdering everybody in horrific ways all
yep.
over town. It's like someone watched Santa slay. Like um and um just oh my god, the scene where was it Stripe? One of them jumps in the pool at
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
Y,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
That was
Billy
Stripe.
just runs for his life. Like, oh my god, I was like, oh no, it's gonna multiply, and then it was like, oh, it's in a pool. Oh my god, it occurred to me what was gonna happen.
Like your realization just kept building on itself.
I was like, oh
And
no.
then the next scene we see them like Stripes walking down like the middle of the street, and then like it's like he's like bah, bah, like says something in like Gremlinese, and like hundreds of gremlins are just like marching behind him, just swarming the streets. Like, oh no! And also, I want to point out the puppet effects of the gremlins is fantastic. They look so good. Like they have like multiple different puppets of like different like facial expressions to just like random kind of just like stock pose like not quite like marionette puppets, but like they had like puppets of just like the legs. So like there's like a lot of like random shots of just like the legs of the gremlins like walking around on the floor, and it seems kind of unnatural. Like there's not any weight behind it because I don't think there was like a torso. It was just kind of like the puppeteers just kind of like awkwardly kind of like moving the legs to make them seem like they all kind of like were like moving of their own free will. Like a lot of the
Yeah,
times the gremlins that we see, we only see either like their top half or their bottom half. Like very rarely do we see like like the entire gremlin at the same time, and normally when we do, it's like holding still or something else is like moving it.
yeah. The design for them was also really great because they
Oh
were
yeah,
terrifying looking. Like,
seriously.
especially coming from the Mogwai, which were like adorable and look like is it Furbies?
Furbies. Yeah,
Yeah,
Furbies.
and then yeah, they it looked there were. I will say, how many times were they ever CGI? Because I feel like there were at least a couple of times where they had to have been.
I
I
don't
can think of
know
a few
about
times where it was
CGI, but
definitely a pup. They were definitely puppets, like when they were being carolers outside Mrs. Beagle's house.
yeah,
Like, oh my god,
like
that was horrifying. But also, they were very
yeah,
much puppets then.
yeah. For the most part, they were puppets. I don't think they really used CGI. I know they used I think it was like stop motion for the scene where like
Oh,
Stripe's
okay.
like walking down the street with like all the other gremlins like following after him. Like that was like stop motion like animation, like almost like claymation. Because like they're very much moving and kind of like jerky kind of movements, and there's a couple times where we see like a gremlin jump, and they seem a bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? They seem a bit more like
Um,
fluid, if that
okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they don't seem to like move with like the same kind of like tempo and speed as the other ones. Like when they're jumping, they seem to kind of like stutter a bit and then land, rather
Hmm.
than just like a normal kind of like whoop land, like jump in the air land. And it for them it was like jump and land. Like there was like very little like of them in the air, if that makes any sense. Like
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
like it
yes.
seemed like there were a couple frames where it's like they were like here
Yeah.
in the air and then they're like way up in the air and then they're like already like in their descent even though they just jumped.
Do you remember in college? I want to say it was like, was it media aesthetics? We had to like, we were all in groups and like had to make a commercial, and one group, it was like a pen where you can fly, and it literally, it was a guy holding a pen and he jumped, and then it just cut to him just landing like in front of like the building.
I think I do, yeah.
It's making me think of that.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
he just like struts into class. um uh yeah, anyway, when Billy finds all the cocoons that the Mogwai are now in, it's
Yeah.
like holy crap. And then, oh my god, the scene where the teacher, it's just, that's when it was I feel like the pacing of this movie was pretty good. Like we meet Gizmo, then he multiplies. It does a good job. It's about the halfway mark when the Gremlins are here.
Like when we actually see the
Okay,
gremlins.
yeah, because it's like we see like, okay, when the teacher is like, he's like opening his candy bar, and I'm like, okay, you don't, I feel like that sounds like you're doing it wrong. Like I would have, like, I don't know, set it on the ground, like push it towards them. Like you don't really know what you're looking for. I know he's assuming it's probably still the Mogwai. Like that's fair to assume, but
Yeah.
but like he's pulling his hand all the way under his desk. I'm like, oh no! And then when Billy finds him, he's dead, and like I'm like, oh my god!
Yeah,
And
after like yeah, but which still kind of like blows my mind that was like out of like everyone in the town, the one like person that you deem to be like the professional go-to scientific genius mind is your local middle school biology teacher.
it's like,
Not
well,
even the high school, like not even the high school biology teacher, the middle school biology teacher. Like I'm not shitting on like teachers or anything like that, or like lack of credentials or anything like that, but it's like, really? That's your first choice?
it's like
All
well,
right.
I mean, it's like when Peter brings the symbiote to his professor. But is
I
that more
mean,
respected
yeah,
because
but
it's
I
a
mean,
professor? Like
yeah, like it's a college professor. Like you need to have like a. I'm pretty sure like he has like in the Spider-Man movies, like he has like a doctorate. Like
he's
he's
done
a
field
scientist.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah he has had field work. Like a teacher, like no, I don't think you need to have field work to be an elementary school or like a middle school teacher or anything like that.
But
I don't know.
yeah.
I'll have to ask my mom because I'm going to dinner tonight and she's a teacher. So
Um,
that'll be a fun question. It's like, hey, did you need field work? And how many weird abominations of nature have you been approached to by students? No, none.
she start
Okay, that's
she
what I
starts
thought.
she starts just like trying to count.
She pulls out a scrapbook, like, well, where do we begin? It's like, oh shit.
So when in the before way before the Gremlins have arrived, uh, Billy is walking home Kate, and she's basically like, his last call. She's trying to get, is it Mr. Is it Futterman?
Yeah, I think it's Mr. Futterman.
And
Yeah,
he's complaining about Gremlins. And I think
yeah.
I went back because I was really confused. I was like, wait a minute. Like, where I more just was confused on like, okay, he is referring to something as gremlins. So I don't understand why specifically they're referring to the Mogwai as gremlins. Is it because he
Yeah,
said that word? Like, what did, I was
I
getting, I got mixed up.
so yeah, and it was also just like watching this movie recently. It's like he like almost teeters on the edge of like being like it's like, ooh, you just get by the censor on saying something like potentially racist. And like he's like constantly like imply like seriously though, right? Like is he
He's
not just
very
made like
much kind of bordering on, like, he will say from like when we first meet him, he is like a pretty kind of friendly neighbor. He's kind of that, he's teetering on like that rural white guy in small town. Like, he's just talking about like how his tractor, he's never had issues with it in 15 years, and like all, like, American products are always better
yeah,
than foreign products because
yeah well
Billy's having trouble with his car, so see, it's a European car. Like,
yeah he's like constantly like Borderlands like, oh yeah, like these piece of crap like flying cars like you like he's like going on about like all this and that, like how like it's like, oh, you need to stick with like American, like grade A American hardware, not I don't know why I'm giving him
yeah,
Boston.
he wasn't really, I don't
um
think, I mean, I don't know, maybe Kingston's just outside of Boston, we don't know.
I don't know. But yeah, he's like teetering on the edge between like like kind of like aloof, kind of lovable neighbor to like, oh, you're an alcoholic racist, and like, oh no, he is kind of an alcoholic, because like the scene that you're talking about where he's like talking about the gremlins, he's talking about like his like a bunch of like planes going down in like World War II. Is like he was so it was like
How
I'm
old was
assuming he's like
he? He was like maybe in his late 40s, early 50s. He
yeah,
wasn't that old. He wouldn't have fought in World War One if he's 40 in the 80s.
I I
Or
don't
two,
know,
World
like
War Two, either one.
yeah 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 like
He could have
he
fought in
seemed to like talk.
Vietnam, maybe.
I I I don't know. He seemed to, well, he's talking about like, well, he mentions specifically World War II.
Oh, okay. So maybe he's supposed to be older than he actually looked, because he definitely didn't look that old. But he and his wife were kind of the first to die, and it
Oh,
was
they, uh, yeah, they
it was
I'm
sad.
gonna give you I'm gonna give you some spoiler. They're in the sequel. They don't die.
Oh, oh, okay. They were the first to be attacked by the gremlins, and it
Yeah,
was sad just because the wife is all excited for Christmas, and she's like singing around the house while and then he's having trouble with the TV because all of the gremlins are on top of the antenna, and then he goes out and one of them is driving his tractor and then drives it into the house. And did they not have a back door? Like, if they kept
I
going,
think
like,
they're I
I don't
you
know.
know what, the body reacts in weird ways when it's scared
Yeah,
shitless,
okay, fair.
and
Okay.
you you can only move so fast when you have a hot brick in your pants, and there's
But I think,
there's so many different escape routes that you can go through your little head, but when something like that happens, you kind of just get paralyzed with fear and just kind of like, well, this is how I go out. Never thought I'd go out like this, but this will be a hell of a story to tell in heaven
but
or
like,
hell. I don't know where I'm going.
but the gremlins are just, it just kind of blew my mind for one, how, I mean, the I keep wanting to call them the gizmos. The Mogwai are pretty smart, it seems like. But the
Yeah,
gremlins, like, they know how to drive. They know if they know how to, cut wires and, like, like,
they
get,
know how to remove like the brake lines of like their
yeah,
car, and hotwire the street lights, and how to turn on a movie projector and watch Snow White.
which is, I thought that was such a hilarious, like, movie choice. like, I mean, I don't know, but regardless, I'm just like, okay. But what town is this that just plays movies that by that point are like 40 plus years old?
Yeah, seriously.
Anyway, um, but I think I do love the scene where Pete is calling the police and he's just shooting. He's just using his like a slingshot and like shooting gremlins off of his, like, away from his house.
Yeah, and he pulls out like some like huge scissors and like cuts the Christmas lights off that like one of the Gremlins is like dangling off of.
But
It
he and
was
the mom just do not waste time, and the mom in particular, she gets like, I will say it was funny because one of the gremlins is hiding in the tree, so it looks like, so it does kind of
Christmas
in the
lights.
Christmas lights, but like the tree falls over, so it does for a second kind of look like the gremlin. I don't know. Okay, I did watch this like 2 nights ago, and it was late, but it looked, it was a nice like little jump scare because it did kind of look like, oh no, the tree's alive for a second, but then Billy comes in and then throws the gremlin in the fire. But I just kind of was like, obviously this started off as a cute pet, and then it turned into this, and so I totally get why everybody's freaking out, and obviously they're all having correct responses. But I am kind of wondering, like, in her mind, for like 1 second, is she thinking like these were my son's pets? like like I'm assuming this isn't the same as like, she would never kill the dog, but like, is she not?
like
Is that not occurring to her
I
like for even a
I
second?
I think it. Well, I think at that point it's just like, what the hell even are these things? Because she's
Yeah,
like her first reaction isn't to kill these things. Her first reaction is to get out of the house, and that kind of gets sidetracked when these things are playing like some like serial killer mind games by playing like music and throwing
not in my
all kinds of stuff
kitchen.
at her. Yeah, like it's like, okay, like you're gonna eat my gingerbread man. I'm gonna like, take a few years off your life, and by a few years, I mean all your years. I'm gonna kill you. You ate my gingerbread man.
But there is another scene that I was just, it was funny, but I will say I do think there were a couple, I feel like it happened a couple times, but in particularly the scene at the bar, and Kate's working and serving all the gremlins, and they're all just, it is funny because they're all just acting like a rowdy group of like bar, like like bar patrons,
Patrons.
like they're drinking, they're singing, they're like getting into fights, and she's just like, ugh, don't kill me, don't eat me, like serving them,
Yeah,
like like
yeah, and they're just playing like a bunch of like rowdy like rock music, and
and I just thought it was
it's
like,
just really
I thought it was
funny.
funny that they knew enough. They did it. Their first thing was not to just kill Kate. Their first thing was to be just. They know. Oh, this is an establishment where you can eat and drink, and they're doing that, as opposed to
Yeah,
killing
it's like
her.
it's like I would have loved to see like the reaction of like them first going into the bar and like trying beer. It's like, oh, yum yum. It's like, or
Yeah,
like gibberish like gremlin language, and then like it's like, hey guys, party's in here, and then like the whole like kind of like upswing kind of goes, like the guys swing on like the ceiling fan, like striping like a bunch of other ones like playing poker. It was just, yeah, it was a really funny scene. I think that's probably like the highlight of the movie for me as well, because it also showcases a lot of really impressive like puppeteer work, like the practical effects, like the models in that scene. Like you see like a bunch ranging from like kind of like the normal kind of like upper torso like models of like all like the gremlins like at the counter like smoking and like drinking beer, to like the full body ones that are just kind of motionless but are kind of like hanging around in the background, like the one on the ceiling fan.
yeah. It was
Yeah, it is really cool seeing like the wide variety of like the puppeteer work all in one
it
scene.
was fun, but I did think it went on for too long. Like, it was a little bit. It was too long of a scene, and I feel like they were probably kept doing it, so they kept it in or didn't really trim it, probably because, like, yeah, it is showcasing like really incredible puppeteering, but it went on for way too long. Um, but yeah, there's the movie theater scene because they're, oh no, we're getting, it's, morning's coming, and so they're all going to be in a dark place together, and it's starting to cut back and forth between the dad who's on his way home, and I'm just thinking, he didn't just buy a pet, he bought a pet by a guy who specifically did, actually more like he stole it for money, but
Yeah,
yeah, he paid for it.
he more
This guy did not want to sell him this pet, And he
No, he more or less smuggled an animal that he knew nothing about. It's like, this will be a good pet for my son. It's like, you prick.
and unknowingly unleashed like a horror on this town and killing most of probably a lot of the citizens, residents there. I would think
Yeah, it's just really weird that like, why did he buy him a
he
pet?
has
Like,
one.
if he has a
Yeah,
dog, it made
it
no
made no sense.
sense. It and also it's like, why, like, it just, they kind of like frame it up that like, oh, like Billy's like a child in this movie. Like they I feel like he was originally written as a child and had enough, like, I feel like the role of Billy was originally supposed to be like two characters that they just combined at the last minute for some like weird casting
Yeah,
issue.
I kind
Because
of
there
was
was like,
expecting like a family. I thought there were going to be kids in this movie other than Corey Feldman.
yeah, yeah, because it would make sense for like, like an older brother or like sibling to like have a job at the bank and have like that romantic love interest with Phoebe Cates. But then it would make sense to have a younger sibling to have like the friendship with like Corey Feldman, who's at the same age, and would bring a gremlin to a middle school because like clearly the smartest person that this kid thinks would be in the town would be his biology teacher at his school. Like that would make sense for like a kid to think that, not a 20-something-year-old to bring a, a random dangerous animal that he's never seen before to his biology teacher rather than, a
I
professional.
yeah,
Like,
it also just kind of it just kind of seems weird. Like it could have I feel like it would have been a little bit of a different movie if there were siblings. I think it would have still been like fun. But like let's say if Corey Feldman was like the younger brother or something, and he like I feel like there would have been I can see more like hostility if like in it if like okay let's say so right now yes Billy is the main breadwinner for the family because his dad is trying to sell
yeah.
his inventions not getting very far um and if he had like a younger sibling, that's in a sense like, okay, yeah, he's got his brother and whatever, they're tight, whatever, but it's also someone else he has to take care of because his dad can't go and just get like a job. So it would have I can see it being the exact same
Although,
movie,
although
but I also
there's
can see it
there's nothing stopping the dad from just getting a
yeah,
job.
exactly. So I'm like I can see it being the same movie just with a larger cast, but I also can see a little bit more of a drama like this movie is pretty. It doesn't have. More surprised that it doesn't. Yeah, the dad's just an inventor, but it's like he's not making any money for his family. He's not. He's like they're just very supportive, and we already kind of talked about this, but like they're. I'm also just surprised. Like, how are they able to keep their house and like pay their bills? Like, I mean, how much money
I
is he
mean,
making at the
I
bank?
guess I guess enough to afford a house with a mortgage. I guess.
And yeah, I'm like, I'm assuming. Yeah, he has to be at least 21, but it doesn't really specify.
Yeah, it's like he's in his like early 20s because he's very much
He's at a
like,
bar, and Kate
yeah, he's
works
at
at
a
a bar.
bar and has a yeah, like, and yeah, no, it just, they never specify the age. Like, I don't feel like they needed to, but they made it seem they made Billy seem a bit more childish than his actual age
Yeah,
implied, if that makes any sense. Like he's like drawing and like making comic books. He's friends with like a, like at most a 12-year-old boy in middle school, and he thinks that the smartest person in town is a high school middle school biology
it's kind
teacher.
of like Stranger Things esque,
It really does, yeah, it really does kind of have like a Stranger Things kind of
like
vibe to
the
it.
AV teacher.
Yeah, like the smartest person in town is just your local nerdy teacher.
Exactly.
Regardless of the subject, a nerdy, like, presumably single middle-aged teacher is the smartest person in town.
Yeah. Um,
All right, so
and then we gotta talk about
they
the very end. So after they've he well I mean they destroyed all the Mogwai. They're in like a was it a mall or they're in a store
Yeah, they're just in like some like outlet
And
store. It looks like that just happens to sell like anything and everything you need for a potential murder.
and this is when the dad rolls into town, and Barney and Gizmo go to save the day and end up, but I don't know, breaking a window. And Mogwai. Oh yeah, the Gremlin is Stripe is back in like a fountain, and he's about to multiply again, and then sunlight, and they all die, and they all. I will say that was kind of horrific, and then his skeleton is still kind of like moving, like that was
Yeah,
horrifying. Um, and then Gizmo
yeah.
is yeah.
It honestly, it's not a Steven Spielberg related movie if it doesn't ride the line between PG and R, because PG-13 still kind of wasn't a thing at the time.
What year was Temple of Doom?
I do not remember
Because
off
it
the
was
top of
Temple
my
of Doom
head.
that was the first PG-13.
I thought it was Poltergeist.
Are you sure? I thought Poltergeist is R. I'm pretty sure it's Temple of Doom. I
No,
know it's Temple of Doom.
I
Wait,
don't
that
know.
was 1984. Isn't that wait when? And Gremlins is 19 also
84.
84. And this came out. So let's see which came out first.
We really got to do the math here now.
This came out in June 1984, and come on, Temple of Doom. Temple of Doom came out. Oh,
Red Dawn
May
is credit. Red
23rd.
Dawn is credited.
So this came out first.
Uh, yeah, this is Red Dawn is credited as the first PG-13 movie on August 10th, 1984.
Why were we told Temple of Doom? Because this says it's also rated PG, which is weird because that's definitely a PG-13 movie. But anyway,
Yeah, okay, yeah, now I'm getting the conflicting thing that the PG-13 movie was created in 1984 due to Temple of
that's what
Doom.
we were. That's what we were told. I remember.
Yeah, okay, I don't. Why the hell is it telling me Red
When?
Dawn?
When? Okay, 1984, the 80s. Is and
Yeah, 84 was the
and
year of
Spielberg was
PG-13.
involved. Like that's all you need to know.
Yes, heavily
Um,
involved. Yes.
but they're kind of giving Gizmo a rest for helping save the day, and they're all chilling on Christmas, and then old Chinese man from Chinatown comes, and he's like, "I told you no, and you took him anyway," and he takes Gizmo, and he says like, maybe like to Billy, like you'll be ready someday. You'll probably be ready someday. And I'm like, I mean, I feel like yeah, he's pretty. Part of me was thinking, is he ready for it? And I'm like, well, he did accidentally have a cup of water in his. I mean, okay, he's allowed to have a cup of water in his room, but someone knocked it over and they
I mean,
multiplied, and
to
he
be fair, to be fair, Billy wasn't the one who messed up. He just cleaned up after the whole
Billy the
thing.
whole time was actually technically following the rules, just did not know his clock was broken, and really it's his dad. It's all his dad's fault. Like,
His dad, and then Corey Feldman spelling it, and
and
then
then just
like 2 seconds later, after 2 seconds, like after seeing like a creature just multiply
he
and
doesn't care.
reproduce, like pretty much asexually, like in front of it, just like, oh cool, a 3D comic. I'm just gonna chill in this like 20-something-year-old's bed and read this. Like, what is your relationship dynamic? Please explain this to me. Are you like lifelong family friends? Like
I
what?
think it's
Child,
just
go home.
small town probably where everybody knows everybody. That's kind of just what I'm going with. Um,
Yeah, it's like child, go
but
home.
then he takes Gizmo, and Gizmo's like, "Bye, Billy," and then the dad narrated the very beginning, and because he was in Chinatown, it came off very film noir-y. And I kind of
Yeah.
think, what do you think about the dad narrating it? Because I feel like if anything, it should have been Billy, or it didn't need narration. Be-
I don't feel like it really needed narration because
it didn't add anything.
it didn't really add anything to it. I mean, it kind of had like a little bit of like atmosphere to it, but it's like if you're gonna narrate it, like narrate the whole movie, not just the beginning and the end. Like it would have made sense for him to kind of like narrate like certain events and kind of like I'm like picturing like this whole movie is like being told like after the fact that it happened, and he's just telling it to someone, and like at the end of the movie, we kind of get like some like kind of like comical like nod that like, oh, this movie was in fact real because the thing that he just mentioned in the story is right there, or something like that, like some kind of like moral or like a MacGuffin that like shows up that was like mentioned or catered to the story just shows up after he said it to whoever he's telling it to.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't he also just doesn't seem like he should be the one narrating it. Um if anything,
Yeah,
if I don't know, maybe like the owner of the shop, like I don't know. Yeah, I agree. It didn't need to be narrated. Um Especially cuz yeah, it wasn't narrated the whole movie. It's the very beginning and the very end and you forget about it. And the dad's not even there for
yeah,
most of the movie.
yeah. He's
The
in like
beginning and the
maybe
end.
yeah, he's in like a quarter of this movie. The rest of this movie, he's at like a convention that has like a bunch of like random like sci-fi cameos with like the robot from like, I think it was either the robot from Lost in Space or Forbidden Planet, and we have like the H.G. Wells like time machine in the background that was actually kind of funny because in one scene we see a guy like on it, and then the next scene when it comes back to it, the thing's smoking and the guy isn't on it, and it's just in the background. And I thought that was a funny nod. It's like, haha,
Yeah.
time travel exists in this world.
And just also actually the last little bit of narration is the dad saying, so if the TV's on the fritz or you're having electrical problems, before you call your repairman, you might want to check. You probably have a gremlin. And it's like, okay, if you have a gremlin, just get the hell out of the house. don't don't be like, I bet there's a gremlin. I'll go check. It's like, no, just maybe if you're worried, I don't know. There's this town probably should have a gremlin watch after the horror show that the dad unleashed on the town. Like it just, I don't know. The dad's just frustrating to me.
Yeah. He really is like, of like, everyone's just like kind of like a victim of his own
Yes.
incompetence.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I feel like that's the best way to sum up that
Yeah.
character. So I guess that kind of leads us into the final segment of our show. Sam, do you think this movie is real?
Oh man. Um. The
Take your
thing
time.
is, I weirdly want to say yes, but I'm trying to think of like I I kind of want to say yes, if particularly because it the Gremlins. While I was very shocked by how much they knew, it's also okay. They're incredibly smart and they're utilizing their intelligence and just going ape on the town. So um, I think of anything, the only reason why I would say like no, it's not real is when there's a lot of things that just don't really make sense. Like why is Billy bringing his dog to work? Why is the mom and son just totally okay with the fact that the dad's not making any money and like probably fine? I'm surprised not financially burdening. He wastes $200 that he probably didn't get back on this gift for his son.
No, he did. He
Oh,
did
he
get that
did?
money back. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. The old man like just like dropped it, like casually like wadded it up and dropped it on the couch
Oh.
or something.
Okay, well, never mind. He got his money back.
So yeah,
He
he
got a
got a
refund.
refund.
Um, well, what do you think? How would you say this?
I want to say, like, I feel like most of the characters in this movie like behave in like the most logical and like reasonable way. Like, I feel like Billy is like the main example of this. Like, everything in this movie, like, aside from like taking his dog to work, which made no sense to me. Like, unless he was like, it's like, oh, the dog can't be left alone, because every scene we see with the dog is
Yeah.
with someone. So like maybe that there's a reason behind that. But like, yeah, pretty much like everything that happens in this movie happens from his point of view as logically as possible, which I kind of appreciate about like Spielberg and Columbus because they make their movies as grounded in
Mm-hmm.
reality as possible, which makes it really difficult to answer this question because of this movie has a ludicrous concept, which on paper makes doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but when you watch it in execution, it's like, oh no, that works. That makes sense. I would
Yeah,
totally do that.
yeah.
Like everything falls into place perfectly when those two are behind the reins, or when those two are behind the wheel. And I would say yes, this movie is real and would happen the way that it has been portrayed.
I think, if anything, I feel like, do you think so many people would have died, or like, I don't know. I think that's my only thing is everybody's reaction was, I agree, was like pretty believable, but like, I don't know. Like, I can't even imagine like this whole town's being slaughtered on Christmas by a bunch of like.
I I I I genuinely think that the kill count would have been
Oh, okay,
higher if this actually happened and if this happened in
okay,
real life.
okay. But I also think this would have, spread. Like, let's say this happened like today. This would have like spread because someone would have put it on Instagram, or this would have like just gone super viral. Like, holy shit, the Kingston Falls massacre from these little monsters.
Yeah, and you know that like the authorities would try to take some of these as like test subjects, and we would have gotten sequel baited hard from something like that. Of if this happened with like 10% more realism. Like this movie's already pretty grounded in realism, but like at the end of the movie when like the dad's like coming into town, we hear on like the radio this like Rockin'
Mm-hmm.
Ricky Rialta or something like that. It's like, oh, Rockin' Ricky had a rough night because like earlier on we hear like a woman like broke into the studio. It's like, we got the Marines on standby, and if those little buggers get too close to the edge of town, we're gonna turn the fire hoses on them. It's like, oh, okay, that would have been interesting if they kind of got a little bit
Also,
too
can
close,
we?
because then not only not only would they have multiplied more, but then they would have gone toe to toe with the military. I would have loved to have seen like that interaction for like
Can we
5
also
minutes.
acknowledge that the that this that this radio host is like copying kind of the likeness of Indiana Jones? Like, the billboard looks like he has a
Yes,
whip and he's dressed like him, and it's the same font as Indiana Jones. I was like, what a sure, just okay, but why? But sure.
hey, Steven
Oh,
Spielberg's
okay.
behind this movie, so I think it's
Um,
okay.
yeah, if anything, I kind of wish this movie had a bigger cast, because I think because it was just we're primarily following Billy and I guess his mom, and then like Billy and Kate. I don't know. I kind of wished it could have been more like the Goonies, and we had like Corey Feldman was great. I kind of wish we saw more of him. Like, if they were siblings as opposed to just he's like a kid in town.
Yeah, like I think that would have made more sense if like Corey Feldman was like the brother of Billy. Like that would have made
Yeah,
so much more sense on like why this
yeah.
kid is here rather than yeah, because like I think we meet his dad like once for like all of two
Oh, isn't it the
seconds.
Christmas tree
Like I'm
salesman
assuming,
guy?
yeah, like I'm assuming that's his dad because
Oh
who
yeah, he's
else
making
would
him
that
dress up
be?
as a little
Yeah,
Christmas tree. And
yeah, he's making him dress up as like a Christmas tree, and yeah, like it, yeah, like it made no sense as to why this like 12-year-old kid is hanging out with his like 20 something year old like yeah it just it made no sense because they never explained how they were friends or how they knew each other. Kind of like yeah, it was just kind of like a weird dynamic that was just never explained. And was just like, all right, this is kind of weird. Can we
yeah,
acknowledge this? Nope. Okay, we're just gonna deal with the Gremlins.
yeah.
Okay.
But overall, it's fun.
Yeah.
It was a
So
fun movie.
yeah, yeah. Is it a perfect movie? No, no movie is perfect. But this is a fun Christmas slash Halloween movie.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm kind of why, I don't know. We just, maybe my sister watched it. I don't know. I don't I think I heard of Gremlins, like it was just a movie name that I heard like floating around, but I didn't watch it. I was not introduced to it. I don't know. Like I have to ask my sister. Maybe she watched it when we were kids because I definitely didn't, or it was an option.
Your sister seems to be the one. Your sister seems to be the one who's seen like the
There's a
fewer
lot
movies
of
that you
things
haven't.
that I don't know. There are though quite like we both like. I remember she didn't watch. Both of us didn't watch Home Alone until like a couple of years ago, and like I don't know. It was just there were certain things we were just not into or were not exposed to. Like we were aware of its existence, but we didn't particularly care. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for it. Um, yeah, but
Fair enough.
yeah. So on that note,
Yeah. On that note, I think that more or less kind of wraps up this episode of Movie Reel for Gremlins. Sam, before we close off, how can these lovely viewers
you
find
can
our
find us
voices?
any major podcasting platform: Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Overcast, Google. We're also on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. And yeah, please subscribe, please leave a comment. And yeah, keep on listening. Uh, we got one more non-traditional Christmas movie coming up.
But honestly, I think
This
out
is
of
the least.
all of the
That's the
ones
least
that
non-traditional.
all three of these movies, this. I feel like this one's probably the most like well known and widely
I will
accepted as a
say, I do
Christmas
think
movie.
I feel like each one. Like I had never heard of Santa's Sleigh. Gremlins.
You're
Gremlins
welcome.
definitely seems like a movie like I've heard of. I know people watch around Christmas. Like I've heard of that. The next one is yeah, forget about it. It's
Yeah,
definitely a Christmas movie. Um,
yeah. Like this one's like it's equal
but
parts
this one
Halloween and
came out
Christmas.
in
But
like June, so you can't convince me this was intended to be like maybe I don't know, maybe it was, but if it was, then why didn't it come out in like November or December?
you know that is a question that I would have liked to ask as well. But I was not around in '84 for obvious reasons.
You were busy.
I was busy not existing at that time. Yeah, you're right, Sam. I was very busy.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. On that note, I'm Kevin Tracy.
I'm Samantha Tomlinson, and maybe don't ever feed anything after midnight because maybe your clock's gonna be broken.
Wise words indeed, Sam. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Bye,
Wish
everybody.
bye.